A day later, Jack had finally completed the production of the communication device. He had not expected that it was going to be a little bit difficult for him to be able to produce something like this. But that was just because it was the first time that he was making something like that. And he was actually trying out several things that were not even supposed to be used, being of a lower quality. If he was actually given materials of a good quality, he would have definitely been capable of producing the communication device in just a matter of about an hour or so. But right now, he had no choice but to try and correct the errors that he was making, trying to make sure that he got everything right. That was actually the reason why it consumed a lot of time. As for the reason why it actually took him an entire day, it was simply because of the chip. To produce the chip, he required a material that was not actually present within the stronghold. For that reason, he had no choice but to wait until it was brought into the stronghold from another stronghold. That was the reason why he had no choice but to pause the production of the communication device. But this morning, we had already completed the production of the chip, before he went ahead and placed it inside of the communication device that was already produced the previous day. But of course, for the communication device to work, there was no way that it was going to work on just one of them. So, Jack had already produced two of them, and during the time that they were waiting for the last material, he went ahead and produced another communication device. Finally, with the two communication devices completed, Jack handed Celine one of the communication devices. Celine understood the reason why he was doing that, so she went upstairs. Jack had already added several programs into the communication devices, linking them together. So, all that was required was for them to initiate a call between the two of them. After the initiation of the call, a display of Celine's image appeared on the screen of the communication device that Jack had produced. The communication device was just like a tablet in the normal world. It was not that much big, but not small as well. The size of the screen was about 9. "Can you get me?" Jack asked, in order to test out if the voice was functioning. "Loud and clear," Celine responded. With that, it was finally confirmed that the communication device was actually functioning. Now, the only thing that was remaining was to test the range of the communication device. But in any case, Jack was not that much worried. At the end of the day, the communication device was going to be used within the stronghold, so there was no need for him to go to other strongholds in order to test out if the communication device was capable of working in a distance like that. The testing for the communication device lasted for about 2 hours, and after confirming that everything was okay, Jack finally decided that it was time for him to be able to release the news about this communication device into the market. Actually, if people in the stronghold actually went to the normal world, they would realize that video calls was not something new. But it was just that the phones were not capable of functioning inside here. That was something that no matter how many times those mercenaries tried, they could not communicate using the normal phones with the people from the normal world. But of course, they could also not use the communication devices present within the stronghold domain to communicate with the people in the normal world. The moment that the information about the communication device was released, several organizations suddenly began acting. Of course, during the past few days, they had already received information about the resources of the Panthers organization being taken over, and not only them, but even the Force organization. Of course, they already knew who it was that had actually taken over the resources. Although it was not confirmed yet, but at least, according to the sources of information that they had, Jack was the most suspicious person. And finally, about 3 days after taking over the resources of the two organizations, he was finally making a move. And, whatever it was that he was introducing, it shocked the entire stronghold. Of course, initially, communication between members of the organization was through voice calls. But right now, if there was actually something that they could use to communicate with others without even being close to them to see them, they would definitely go for it. Just as decided previously, Jack went ahead and stated that in case a person wanted to take the communication device, they would have to give him resources in exchange, and not the star coins. As for the matter of the production of the communication devices in bulk, that was something that Jack had already prepared for. Instead of asking other people to work for him in the creation of the communication devices, he just wrote down the procedure, detailed enough that even a rookie would definitely be capable of performing the procedure, before giving them to the puppets. But of course, the puppets were going to perform this work secretly. That was why Jack had gone ahead and purchased another building that was not far away from where they were. This building possessed a basement, something that Jack was going to turn into a workshop. After that, several equipment were brought into that building. But of course, everything was done by the members of the Panthers organization that had decided to join him. But of course, Jack was not afraid that the information about the production of the communication device was going to be leaked. At the end of the day, the ones that were going to do the production of the communication devices were actually at the superhuman level. So, who was it that was going to be capable of stealing information about the production method? And other than that, it was not as if the puppets were going to be holding the paper that was the procedure of the production. The only person that was actually capable of doing something like that, accessing the building, that was none other than Sebastian. But as someone who came from a big organization, in a big stronghold, why would he be concerned about a low-level communication device? Inside a mansion that was located closer to the center of the stronghold. Just as Jack had expected, although Sebastian was curious about the reason why Jack had decided to start producing the communication devices, he did not really care much about it. In any case, he was still busy planning on what he was supposed to be doing. He had already received information about the fact that Jack had actually killed several people other than the two that were from the Force organization. And the background of the two of them was actually quite big. Derek, the future heir of his family that was located in Jimbo's stronghold. And other than him, there was that old man that was also killed. I never expected that this kid is going to cause so much trouble, and right now, even if we decide to take him, we have to make sure that the information about the fact that he killed those two is not revealed to the public. Otherwise, if this information is revealed, I do believe that the members of that family from Jimbo's stronghold are definitely not going to let this go. Sebastian stated in a low voice. But that is only if this kid agrees to join, but according to what I can see, no matter what I do, he will definitely not be joining our organization, unless we force him to a corner. So, I'm sorry about this, but I'll have to make sure that you agree. I'll get someone to inform the members of the Jimbo stronghold to know about the fact that you are the one that killed the heir of the family. After that, when you are being hunted, I'm pretty sure that you will have no choice but to come to us. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you will definitely be killed. Sebastian stated as a malicious light flickered in his eyes. After making this decision, using the communication device that he possessed, Sebastian made a call. Of course, the communication device that he possessed the inter-stronghold function. That was something that he was granted when he was sent on this mission. At the end of the day, he had to inform the one that had sent him over about the progress of the mission. But nevertheless, he was not using the inter-stronghold communication device to communicate with the one that had sent him here, but instead, someone else that was present within Jimbo's stronghold. Hey Alex, I have got information for you. I know who it was that killed the young master of your family. Do you want to know about him? Sebastian asked the moment that the call connected. There was a moment of silence from the other end of the call. After about a minute, a man's voice came through the communication device. Are you about this, Sebastian? I don't want jokes on something as serious as this one. Do you think I would risk using the in the stronghold communication link to communicate with you if I was trying to joke? In any case, do you want the information or not? Sebastian questioned back, a little bit irritated. Of course he did not like being doubted when he was actually offering the other party an important piece of information. What is the price? Alex asked after a moment of hesitation. Of course, Jack did not know about what Sebastian had done. But even if he came to know about that, he was not going to care much about it. In any case, it was not as if the people from Derek's family were not going to know about the fact that he was the one who was involved in the killing of the two, Derek and his guardian. At the end of the day, Jack had not even tried to hide the fact that he had killed the two of them. And to say the truth, although he really did not want trouble, it was not as if he was the one who went ahead and looked for them. Instead, it was Derek who came out of the stronghold domain to the normal world, just to look for Celine. And after that, he began causing trouble for the two of them. Then, targeted Celine, something that was completely above the limit that he could tolerate. Right now, what Jack was focusing on was the resources that he was receiving. After the information about the communication device was revealed, the majority of the organizations within the stronghold all wanted the communication devices. But nevertheless, all of them could not help but feel that Jack was trying to exploit them. After all, instead of star coins, this guy was actually asking for resources from them. They could not help but wonder if the resources that he had gained from the Panthers organization together with the Force organization were not actually enough for him. Nevertheless, there was always a person that was decisive when it came to some matters, and of course, that was none other than Phoebe. She had already been paying much attention to Jack recently, and she realized that Sylvia was paying several visits to him. She was quite curious about him, and until now, although the relationship between the two of them was kind of tense, at least it was not to the level where the two of them were enemies. So, the moment that Jack revealed the information about the communication device, other than the fact that she herself was actually interested in the communication device, Phoebe wanted to use this chance in order to interact with Jack and know just what kind of person he was. So, although she felt that what Jack was asking from them was kind of a high price, but nevertheless, she decided to pay it nevertheless. At the end of the day, perhaps they might actually come to an agreement, and she might end up gaining something from it. After making the decision, she obviously went ahead and met up with Jack. As for Jack, he was not surprised by the presence of a person like Phoebe. In any case, something that he had produced, the communication device, it was definitely not something that could be found inside a small stronghold like this one. Of course, Jack had not just created a communication device and left it at that. Instead, he had gone ahead and added the function of the voice call, and other things like an ordinary phone would possess. So, the function of the communication device was not just communicating, but instead, it could actually go online. So, what are you going to offer that is capable of improving the strength of a person? It has to be something that has an effect on a superhuman. No matter how small. Jack asked as he looked at Phoebe, who was seated in front of him. Currently, the two of them were inside the workshop that Jack possessed, inside the building that they had purchased ever since they came into this stronghold. Phoebe had been observing Jack all along. Initially, she had only been viewing him in the images and videos that she was sent during the time she was training. But right now, looking at him, she could not help but be amazed by him. Of course, as expected, after reaching the superhuman level, the appearance of a person would be boosted. Jack was already handsome before even reaching the superhuman level. And for that reason, his appearance had also been boosted after reaching the 5th stage of the superhuman level. So to say the truth, he was currently considered as a lady killer. But, no matter how people viewed him, Jack really didn't care much about their opinions. To him, he already had a girlfriend, and not just any girlfriend, but a fiancée that he was supposed to marry later on. After hearing Jack's question, Phoebe finally came back to her senses and said, "I'm going to give you something that I'm using to train, the only resource that we have inside of our organization. It is capable of affecting a superhuman, even one at the 3rd stage of the superhuman level." Jack looked at Phoebe with his brows raised. When Phoebe saw the expression that was on Jack's face, of course she understood what that expression meant. "I know what you are thinking. That if I actually possess something that is capable of affecting a superhuman at the 3rd stage of the superhuman level, why is it that I'm still at the 1st stage of the superhuman level?" Phoebe stated without waiting for Jack to say anything. "That is exactly the question that I'm having right now." Jack did not deny at all. Instead, he just looked at Phoebe as he stated those words honestly. The real reason behind that is due to the fact that once that serum is taken, the effects are going to be quite big. It will make a person to go unconscious for more than one day. As for how long a person is really going to be unconscious, I'm not sure because it is something that depends on the willpower of the person who has taken the serum. Phoebe responded honestly. Just like how Jack was currently, Phoebe was also a straightforward person. So, instead of hiding information about the serum, she went ahead and revealed it. Reaching into her jacket pocket, she took out a small glass bottle. It possessed a small pale blue liquid inside it. After playing with it in her hand for a moment, she handed it over to Jack. Jack took over the small bottle. He could see that this bottle that was containing this liquid was not normal. And that was actually the exact reason why this serum was not being protected inside a special box that was going to make sure that the effects of the serum were not affected. After observing it for a while, Jack immediately recognized it. At the end of the day, he had received a lot of information about the stronghold domain, together with the resources and other things present within it. Berserk Booster Serum. Jack stated after a moment of observing the small liquid that was present within the small glass bottle. Phoebe was a little surprised after Jack noticed what that serum was. To say the truth, she had not expected that Jack was going to recognize it. After all, this was something that was quite rare even in the big strongholds. In fact, it was not that it was actually rare, but it was just that the majority of the people never liked using something like this. Although it was actually capable of boosting someone's strength, but the side effects of the serum were quite disastrous. Other than being unconscious for an indefinite time, the person that is going to take this serum is definitely going to experience a lot of pain. Jack stated as he placed the small bottle on top of the table that was in between the two of them. "That amount of pain is something that I can handle. Don't tell me that someone like you, who is considered a man, cannot actually handle that amount of pain," Phoebe stated with her brows arched. At the corner of her lips, Jack could see that there was a smirk. That is your opinion, Jack responded. After that, he looked at Phoebe and said, you already know about the side effects of taking this thing. So, why do you believe that I'll give you the communication device with just this one? Phoebe was not impressed by the reaction that Jack was having. That nonchalant expression on his face that stated that he did not really care about the provocation that she had just sent over made her a little bit irritated. But at the same time, she was much more curious about this Jack. At the end of the day, not only was he younger than she was, but he was surprisingly stronger than she was. That was something that she already knew after the visit that she had paid to Sylvia. Are you trying to tell me that this is not enough for the communication device? The only thing that comes with the communication device that we cannot do is only the fact that there is the video. We can actually talk to each other while observing each other. But other than that, there are other devices that are capable of functioning just as that communication device of yours can, Phoebe stated bluntly. I'm not going to discuss to you about the benefits of the communication device that I have created. Although it is just called a communication device, the functions that it possesses are way above the communication device. As for the other functions, they are integrated into one item, unlike what you are trying to say, where you are actually going to be required to use several different equipment and items in order to be able to complete everything that you could have completed with a single item. Jack waved his hand as a responded. Whatever. So, I'm going to add another thing. This is only capable of affecting people that are at the first stage of the superhuman level. And, let me tell you something, if you don't agree to this, then we can just give up on this matter, Phoebe stated as she took out a small box. After opening it, inside of the box, there was a small glass bottle that possessed a small cartridge that was containing a yellow liquid. After looking at it for a moment, Jack closed the small box. With that, he took out the two communication devices that he was having next to him on the couch that he was sitting on, before handing them over to Phoebe. With that, the deal could be considered as closed. And, Jack had actually gained a lot. Although it might actually be true that the Berserk booster serum had several side effects, that was not something that Jack cared much about. At the end of the day, the multiplier effect had not been applied yet. Once it was done, he was pretty sure that the side effects would be reduced, right? Although he was not sure, but at least he believed so. As for the other one that was only capable of affecting stage 1 superhumans, it was not difficult for him to be able to acquire a high-level one after the multiplier effect was applied. With the deal finally closed, Phoebe decided to talk about another matter. She was curious about Jack. It was just that she did not really know what to say to him. Nevertheless, she thought for a while, and thought about something that they could talk about. About the communication device. I really want several of them. I do believe that you are not expecting me to just own this pair, right? Phoebe asked as she pointed what the box that Jack had given to her. I have got no problem if you want more of them, but nevertheless, you will have to pay for each communication device that you'll be taking. And as you can see, I'm giving out as a pair, and not just one of them, Jack stated nonchalantly. Looking at the nonchalant expression that was on Jack's face, Phoebe could not help but feel a little bit helpless. She herself was not that good when it came to socialization. And right now, she was trying to find a common topic that she could discuss with Jack, but this guy was giving out answers that finalized everything. Of course I know that. But what I'm trying to talk about is that, for the next purchase, I hope that you will reduce the price. At the end of the day, we are in a small stronghold, and whatever it is that you are asking for exchange for the communication devices is quite high, Phoebe stated. Well, as I can remember, I don't think I ever stated that it has to be only a single thing that can be exchanged. Although it is true that I stated that it has to be something that can affect a superhuman. But who said that it had to be a high-level one? You can deal with the matter of quality by compensating me with quantity. That will work as well. Jack shrugged his shoulder as he responded. Phoebe couldn't help but blink her eyes as she looked at Jack. Really, what he had said was true. He had never said that they had to bring high-level items in order to exchange for the communication device. That was something that they had assumed on their own. But right now, after thinking through, it seemed that she was the one who didn't think much about it. It seemed that she was going to be capable of accessing more communication devices. At the end of the day, when it came to the resources that were capable of affecting superhumans, although they were not that much within this stronghold, but still, each organization possessed a sizable amount. The reason behind this was simply because if an organization possessed 2 superhumans, they would not be having much trouble when it came to training. It was just that the level of the resources that they were receiving were quite low. Why didn't you specify something like that early? A little displeased, Phoebe asked with a frown on her face. You could have simply asked for clarification from me, but it seems that nobody was interested in something like that. Jack shrugged his shoulder as he responded. Phoebe could do nothing at this point. At the end of the day, although it was true that Jack had not specified anything, but they themselves had not also taken any interest in questioning if something like that was possible. So, all of them were to blame. After knowing that there was nothing that they could talk about anymore, Phoebe finally decided to leave. Of course, that did not mean that the interest that she possessed towards Jack had already waned away. In fact, she was even more curious about him. But, at this point, she realized that there was no information that she could get from Jack, unless she was closer to him. Nevertheless, it was not as if Jack was the only person that she could get information from. For that reason, this time, after she left this place, she decided that she was going to visit Sylvia. Although the relationship between the two of them was kind of rigid, but the two of them were not enemies at all. In fact, the relationship between the two of them was way better as compared to the one that the two of them shared with the leaders of the other organizations present within the stronghold. As soon as Phoebe left, Jack focused on the prompts that had appeared in front of him. You have earned a Berserk Booster Serum. Multiplier applied. Would the host like an increase in terms of quality or quantity? You have earned a Cell Invigorant Syrup. Multiplier applied. Would the host like an increase in terms of quality or quantity? After reading the two prompts, Jack did not hesitate to select an increase in terms of quality. Currently, it was not as if he was going to deal with many people. Instead, he wanted to increase the strength of just a few people. So, quality was definitely the best in this situation. You have earned a Berserk Booster Serum. Multiplier applied. You receive a Booster Serum, 8 star. You have earned a Berserk Booster Serum. Multiplier applied. You receive a Cell Upgrade Syrup, 7 star. After reading the information about the two items that he had received, just as he had expected, the Booster Serum no longer possessed the Berserk effect. The side effects of a person being unconscious for a day or more, and the torment that they were supposed to undergo while experiencing the pain was also removed completely. As for the second one, Cell Invigorant Syrup, that was something that was used by those that were training. Of course, it had to be superhumans because if an ordinary human used it, they would be overwhelmed by the syrup and would end up dead. During training, after a person took this syrup, the results of their training would be increased. It could be like those illegal drugs that if taken by those bodybuilders, they would be able to gain results faster. It was just that inside here, there were actually no side effects. That was the reason why the majority of the superhumans were actually using this syrup. It was just that the one that was present within this organization was actually a low-level one. After the upgrade by the system in terms of quality, he had gotten Cell Upgrade Syrup. This was yet another resource that could be found within the Stronghold domain. It was just that it was kind of rare considering that the results that came from the Cell Upgrade Syrup were way better as compared to the one that came from the Cell Invigorant Syrup. Nevertheless, with the upgrade, although it was just a 7-star level syrup, a level below the Booster Serum, but Jack understood that the results of the two were almost the same. It was just that the Booster Serum was a little bit better. The thing that made Jack more excited was the fact that the person that took the syrup and the serum did not need to exercise. Instead, after taking the syrup and the serum, the results would be immediate. Currently, something that could affect a person of Jack's level, who was currently at stage 5 of the superhuman level, was something like the Booster Serum and the Cell Upgrade Syrup. System, if I give the Cell Upgrade Syrup to Samantha, would she be affected? Jack asked the system in his mind. During the time that you gave the lady named Denali something from the system that was way above her level, did she die? Not really, Jack responded, not understanding what the system was trying to imply. Then you've got your answer. Anything that comes from the system does not affect a person. No matter the level of the item that comes from the system, as long as a person takes it, they would only gain advantages, and not disadvantages. Jack was excited after hearing that. Of course, the reason why he had asked a question like that was not because he was dumb, or he had forgotten about what had happened during the time that Denali had taken the pill. But instead, it was just that for the Cell Invigorant Syrup, that was something that had been specified that if taken by an ordinary human, that ordinary human was bound to die. So, after the upgrade, Jack was hoping that there was no side effect like that. Since the system had already cleared out his doubts, he did not hesitate to call out for Samantha. At the same time, he prepared a cartridge syringe, before placing the cartridge that contained the Cell Upgrade Syrup. It was finally here. The day that she had been waiting for so long had finally arrived. It seemed that the decision that she had made was actually something that was benefiting her greatly. At that time, when she decided to follow Eric out of the stronghold domain, she did not really know about what she was going to get. But in the end, she realized that she had made a good decision. Although it was true that she nearly died, but it was good that she did not do anything drastic. Otherwise, she would have definitely been accompanying Eric in the underworld right now. But due to her quick wit, she was able to easily give in, signing a contract that she was going to work for Jack for a year. And after that, when she interacted with Jack, she came to know that he was a good person. Just looking at Denali, who was being treated not as a subordinate, but as a member of the family, Celine's friend and so on, she became interested in being a part of this group. Friendship began slowly, and finally, Samantha did not feel like she was being held here as a prisoner. In fact, she did not even think much about the contract that she had signed. Although the contract stated that she was supposed to be here for a year, she really didn't care even if she had to stay here for 10 years or more. In fact, in case Celine was in danger, she was willing to risk her life in order to save her because she was her friend. And then, during that time when Jack suddenly made Celine into a superhuman without hiding it from her, she became more determined to work for him. And right now, it seemed that even the time that she decided to leave the butterfly organization was also right. She was going to gain something that if she had stayed within the butterfly organization, she would have definitely not been capable of gaining it. Jack did not know what was going on inside Samantha's mind. As for himself, he just went ahead and injected the syrup into Samantha on her arm. The moment that the syrup was injected into her body, Samantha suddenly felt that her body was warming up. The temperature of her body increased at a high rate, that in no time at all, she began sweating buckets. You can help her to get in the bathroom. She will need to soak in water, and when I say water, I mean a lot of water, Jack stated as he looked at Samantha. Celine and Denali supported Samantha and took her upstairs. After that, they placed her inside a water tab, naked, and filled it with cold water. But what surprised them was the fact that in just a few seconds, the water that was cold previously suddenly began boiling. It was also at this moment that they finally understood what Jack was trying to imply. So, they continuously opened water to flow. At the same time, they allowed the air conditioner to continue running, while making sure that it made the room as cold as it could be. The two of them were already superhumans, so they were not much affected by the decrease in the temperature. As for the mist that was coming from the evaporating water, it was easily taken out of this place by the fan. This was the advantage of the advanced technology that could be found within the stronghold domain. It was easy to isolate the moisture in the air, taking the hot air out, while leaving the cold air in. Vice versa could also apply. Downstairs, Jack decided to take the booster serum. According to the system, this serum did not have much of an effect, side effect. But nevertheless, it was enough to be able to boost his strength by a good margin. Previously, after taking a 7-star serum, Celine, who had been at the first stage of the superhuman level, had been boosted to the 4th stage of the superhuman level. That was quite an increase by 3 stages. As for himself, he was currently at the 5th stage of the superhuman level. And after taking the booster serum, he was definitely going to be able to advance. Though, he was not sure about how many stages he was going to be able to rise. After taking out the booster serum out of the cartridge, Jack went ahead and injected himself. And after the injection, nothing actually happened. He waited for 5 minutes, and just as he was getting a little bit impatient, the effects finally began appearing. He suddenly felt that the strength that he possessed had suddenly shot off the roof. It was not a step-by-step boost, but instead, it was as if he was previously at level 1, and suddenly, he appeared at level 10. Something like that caught him off guard, making him have difficulty in controlling the strength that he possessed. For that reason, he broke the armrest of the couch that he was sitting on due to the fact that he was exerting strength at that point. Bang! Even as the armrest of the couch was broken, Jack did not care about that at all. Instead, he only focused on the increase in strength that he had gotten. The thing that surprised him was the fact that this boost actually just took effect once, and after that, there was no any other effect that appeared. That implied that the effect of the booster serum had ended. Yes, the booster serum has already taken effect. If you are actually waiting for it to increase your strength more than it has already done so, then you can keep on dreaming. After the prompt from the system, Jack finally confirmed that it was true that the effect of the booster serum had actually ended. At the same time, he could not help but wonder just how many stages he had improved with. The booster serum had not given him a chance of counting how many genetic locks had been broken during the time that he was leveling up. Everything was just done with a snap of a finger, denying him the chance of slowly counting the genetic locks as they were broken. Currently, the host is at the 8th stage of the superhuman level. But the strength that the host possesses can match equally that of a superhuman at the 9th stage of the superhuman level. With the system prompt, Jack could finally confirm the strength that he possessed. But there was something that confused him a little. A 7-star serum was capable of enabling a stage 1 superhuman to be able to level up by 3 times. As for him, an 8-star serum was only capable of enabling him to level up by 3 times as well? Wasn't that a little bit low? At the end of the day, although it was true that a 7-star serum and an 8-star serum were just a single star away from each other, but the effects were completely different. The effects of the 8-star serum was more than thrice that of a 7-star serum. And although it was true that the resources that were required by a stage 5 superhuman to level up was higher as compared to a stage 1 superhuman, but didn't the serum that he took have a high level as well? Well, deciding not to think much of the matter because there was nothing that was going to change, Jack decided to focus on trying to control his strength. And thanks to the fact that he possessed the 100 times multiplier effect, he was able to gain control of himself quite quickly. Although he could not fully control the strength that he currently possessed, he was still able to control himself when it came to some simple matters like walking around and so on. Samantha had upgraded as well. After taking the syrup, she had already managed to reach the superhuman level. But, for some reason, she had only reached the 2nd stage of the superhuman level. Although currently she was considered the weakest amongst the group of 4, Samantha was excited nonetheless. At the end of the day, she had finally become a superhuman. Additionally, she had even gone ahead and gone past the level of the leader of the previous organization that she was in. So, this was definitely something that she had never been even dreaming about. But right now, it had happened. On the other hand, Jack did not focus much on Samantha. Instead, he looked at the 2 items that were still remaining in the workshop. Those were obviously the Berserk Booster Serum and the Cell Invigorant Syrup. Although the multiplier effect was applied, that did not imply that the original ones would disappear. Instead, they would still remain there. Looking at these 2, they were completely useless to everyone here. That was unless Samantha decided to take it. But what was the use of her taking something like that considering that she could gain better resources later on? So, at this point, Jack decided that he was going to sell these 2. Of course, he already knew that there was not going to be any multiplier effect after selling and gaining something. But who said that he could not gain anything after selling what he would have gained after selling the 2 items? That was actually what he was planning. He was planning on exploiting the system completely. While Jack was improving himself and selling the communication devices, 2 days passed, and during these past 2 days, several changes had occurred within the stronghold. While several organizations made moves in order to acquire the communication devices from Jack, someone else had actually arrived at the stronghold. And of course, the moment that he appeared, Jack was informed immediately. This guy who had come over possessed a muscular physique. And when he came over, he did not even put on an armor, but he was just wearing a simple vest that exposed his bulky stature. This was a person that came from Jimbo's stronghold, someone that had been sent over by Derek's family in order to get the person who had killed Derek and his guardian. Not long after Jack had received information about the arrival of this person, Sylvia came over. This was the first time that she had come ever since she had been injected with the ability Awakening Serum. During the past 3 days, she had been training, trying to control the ability that she had gained. Of course, the first thing that she had to do was to realize which ability she had awakened. Of course, if she was just a normal person, she would have definitely taken a very long time in order to identify which ability she had awakened. But since she was already a superhuman, it was not that much difficult for her to be able to identify which one it was. And to say the truth, she was a little disappointed after realizing what ability she had awakened. Nevertheless, she did not really care much considering that she had already awakened an ability. After she came over, she found that Jack was completely nonchalant, still working on something else. It was as if he was trying to create a pill or a certain kind of medicine. The moment that she noticed him dealing with medicine, she could not help but be surprised. After all, she had expected that Jack was actually knowledgeable when it came to craftsmanship. But, how was it possible that he was also knowledgeable when it came to medicine to this level? It might be true that he was the one that had created the serum for her, but the creation of the serum was not something that would only be created with the medical professionals alone. But instead, even some knowledgeable craftsmen could create the serum because it did not involve too many procedures. Just how many skills do you possess? Sylvia couldn't help but ask as she looked at Jack, who was still engrossed in some experiment. You can try to think about how many skills I possess, but I do doubt that you will be able to know all of them. Jack responded without turning around to look at Sylvia. Currently, he was trying to see if he could actually produce the same medicine that was found within this small stronghold. After the production of this medicine, he was going to try and exchange it for something that was of the same value. What brought you here today? Jack asked. Of course, he could not believe that Sylvia was going to come here without any reason. In any case, currently, she was supposed to be continuously trying to control the ability that she had just awakened. It might be true that she was having an advantage due to the fact that she was a superhuman, but that did not imply that she did not need to train in order to be able to easily control the ability that she was possessing. What? Are you trying to say that I cannot come here to pay you guys a visit? Sylvia asked with raised brows. Of course you can. But I can tell that right now, you have definitely not come here to visit us, right? Jack stated in a calm voice. Sylvia snorted after hearing what Jack had said. So instead of wasting time here, she decided to go ahead and tell him the reason why she was here. I have received information that there is someone that has come over again. This person is a superhuman, just like that Sebastian guy. It is just that this new guy is from the Jimbo stronghold, one where Derek's family is found. The current power level of this person that has come over, according to the information that I have received, he is in the 7th stage of the superhuman level. Oh, Jack responded simply. He had already received information about the arrival of this person, and he had already guessed where he was from. The only piece of information that he did not possess of the current power level of the person that had come over. And now receiving the information that this person was actually at the 7th stage of the superhuman level, he was not much surprised. At the end of the day, a person of this power level was definitely considered a very big superpower within a small stronghold like this one. But now, even if it was Sebastian or this new guy that had come over, none of them was his much. In fact, currently, Jack was already considered a stage 9 superhuman. What is with that response of yours? Don't you think that it is going to be a little bit troublesome for you to be able to deal with 2 people at the same time? Sylvia asked with a hint of dissatisfaction. If they try causing trouble for me, I'll just kill them off, but if they stay put, I have no problem with them. They can continue staying within this stronghold as long as they want, but I'll never care about it. Jack responded offhandedly. Whatever. It is your problem. For me, I have already informed you about what I know, and I think I have completed part of the deal. There's only another part that I'm supposed to give you information about, the one that is behind the force organization that is targeting you. After that, I think that part of the deal will be considered done. Sylvia waved her hand as she responded. A few hours later, there was someone that finally came to the building. Of course, it was that bulky guy from Jimbo's stronghold. He had already received information about the fact that Jack was present in this place. Additionally, Sebastian had made sure to give detailed information about Jack, to make sure that whoever it was that was going to come over, was going to know that Jack was a superhuman, and they had to know about where they could find him. But of course, he did not give information about how strange Jack's genetic structure was. That was something that was supposed to be kept as confidential for the organization. Jack looked at the bulky guy who had entered without even bothering to knock with an indifferent gaze. He had already been expecting this guy to come over, considering that there were 10 puppets that were monitoring the entire stronghold. So, how was it possible that this guy was going to be capable of coming over without him noticing that? Additionally, there was yet another piece of information that he had received. That was the fact that there was interaction between this guy and Sebastian. And the moment that Jack received that information, he thought that this was to be expected. In any case, Sebastian was definitely not going to give up on trying to recruit him into the force organization. So, since Jack had already refused the first time, it was clear that Sebastian was trying to force him into a corner, so that he could only run towards the force organization for help. If that was the case, then the force organization was the one that was going to hold the initiative. As for the benefits that they had offered Jack with, they could as well go ahead and reduce them. At the end of the day, what could Jack do? He could only agree to the offers that they were giving because they were the ones that were going to handle the enemies that he had created. Oh, it seems that you were actually expecting me to come over. The bulky guy stated in a deep voice as he looked at Jack, who was looking back at him. He could not see any surprise in Jack's eyes, and from the looks of it, it was clear that Jack was actually waiting for him. That gave him a little surprise, but that was all. What do you think? In any case, it is not as if this is just a toilet that you can come and go as you wish. This is my place, so whoever it is that comes over, I have to have knowledge about them coming over. Jack responded calmly. Oh, I see. But in any case, it doesn't matter if you actually expected that I was coming over or not. I'm here with only one intention, to take you back to where I am coming from. If you don't cooperate, I don't mind forcing you to do that. I do believe that you already know the mistakes that you committed, and you know the punishment that is going to come for that. The bulky guy stated as he looked at Jack. There was contempt in his eyes as he looked at the young man in front of him. To say that he did not believe that this young man in front of him was actually a superhuman. How was it possible for him to be a superhuman, one that was capable of killing a person like Vincent who was at the third stage of the superhuman level? At the end of the day, at his age, he was supposed to be an ordinary human, and not a superhuman. So, currently, he believed that this young man possessed a protector that was at the superhuman level. And it was this superhuman that had actually killed Vincent and Derek. Otherwise, if it was true that this young man was actually a superhuman, wouldn't that mean that he was from a big organization? And if he was from a big organization, what was he doing in such a small stronghold? I don't really understand what you are trying to imply. But nonetheless, you are not invited here, so you can just turn around and go out just the same way that you came in. Duck stated as he waved his hand, as if he was dismissing a subordinate. Veins popped on the bulky guy's forehead as he looked at Jack furiously. This was the first time that he was being addressed in such a way by such a young man. Even Derek had to give him some respect considering the current power level that he was possessing. So, how was it possible that he was going to ignore being underestimated and looked down on by such a young man like Jack? Still, he managed to calm himself down. At the end of the day, he was here for a mission, and he was not willing to do anything that went against the instructions that he had been given. You know what? I have been instructed that I have to take you back to Jimbo's stronghold. You killed the young master of the Johnson family, and for that reason, you need to pay for your crimes. I was instructed by the head of the Johnson family to bring you back. I was asked to bring you alive, but I was not asked to bring you in one piece. So, if you don't cooperate, I don't really mind breaking your limbs so that I can bring you back to Jimbo's stronghold. The bulky guy stated as he looked at Jack. Instead of responding to him, Jack looked towards the entrance of the room silently. The bulky guy wondered what Jack was looking at, so he turned around and looked towards the door that was not that far from where he was. But nonetheless, he could not see anybody there. So, he was wondering if Jack was trying to play a prank on him or something like that. But just as he was about to say something, Jack finally spoke. Sebastian, are you just going to continue standing there at the door, waiting for the opportune moment for you to come in and give a better offer? After Jack's words, there was a moment of silence within the room. The bulky guy looked at Jack confusedly. Of course, he knew who Sebastian was. But he was wondering what Jack was trying to imply by saying that Sebastian was just listening into the conversation between the two of them, and waiting for a good opportunity for him to be able to come in and save Jack. Are you going to come in, or do you want me to come out? Jack continued to ask again. After another few seconds of silence, just when the bulky guy was about to say that Jack was trying to play a prank on him, the door of the room finally opened and Sebastian stepped in. He looked at Jack with a smile on his face, looking like he was not even caught snooping around. He was smiling as if he was meeting an old friend of his. Hello Jack. We meet again. Sebastian stated with a smile on his face, not caring about anything that had happened. The bulky guy was actually surprised when Sebastian came in. To say the truth, he had not even noticed that Sebastian was the entrance of this building. How come that Jack was able to notice him, but he did not? What the FCK are you doing here, Sebastian? And did what Jack said right now true? Are you here because you want to save him from me? The bulky guy asked as he looked at Sebastian with squinted eyes. In front of Sebastian, he could not act all so cocky. At the end of the day, the two of them were at the same level. So, if the two of them fought, it was quite difficult to tell who was going to win between the two of them. So, in any case, the bulky guy did not want to engage with Sebastian in a fight. That was definitely not the agenda that had brought him here today. For him, as long as he got Jack, he did not have any other thing to do here, and he would go back to the Jimbo stronghold as soon as he was done. Gideon, you are not thinking that you are the only ones that want to get this guy to join your organization, right? In fact, I was here ahead of you. So, I'm supposed to be having a head start right now. Sebastian shrugged his shoulder as he responded. Gideon was just about to say something when Jack spoke again. You know, I already told you that I'm not going to join your organization. As for these petty tricks that you are trying to play, I'll tell you from the start, they will not work. But in case you try to do something like this again, I promise you that things will not end up well, Jack stated coldly. It might be true that he did not care that much about the two people in front of him considering that they were at a lower level than him, but that does not imply that he was ready to play their game. At the same time, he was not going to risk it having the two of them continuously staying here. At the end of the day, although he was capable of handling them, Celine and the others were not. So, if the two of them actually targeted Celine and the other two ladies, it was going to be troublesome. Of course, for Sebastian, it might be difficult for him to target the two girls because he wanted him to join the Force organization without making them his enemy. But the same could not be said about this guy called Gideon. He was here to take Jack back to Jimbo's stronghold, not caring about the condition that he took him there in, as long as he was alive. What are you trying to say, Jack? I'm sincere here. I'm here because I want you to join our organization, and that's all. Otherwise, if I had any ill intentions, don't you think that I would have already acted by now? Sebastian asked, the same smile still on his face. But in his eyes, a sharp glint could be seen for a moment before it disappeared. You have already acted by informing the members of the Johnson family about me, so, you better not continue playing those tricks again. And let me tell you, if you do that, I don't really mind eliminating you, Jack stated coldly. Are you kidding? You are actually telling me that you are the one that informed the Johnson family about the whereabouts of this person? But it turned out that you were only trying to play and use us? I was just wondering why it was that a person of your level is actually found within a small stronghold like this, but it turned out to be like this. You were actually waiting for me to come here and cause trouble for this kid, before you finally show up and help him out so that he can join your organization? Gideon asked as he looked at Sebastian furiously. Although he was trying so much to prevent himself from attacking Sebastian right now, but if anything happened, he didn't know if he could actually continue holding back. How could he accept to be used in such a way? What now? Are you trying to tell me that you want to fight me? Right now, none of us has an advantage. But when it comes to the recruitment of the young man in front of us, I do believe that I have an advantage as compared to your Johnson family. While you guys want to kill him, our organization values his talent, and that is the reason why we want to recruit him into our organization. For that reason, we have no choice but to stop you from killing him. Even if I did not provide you with the information about where he is currently, I'm pretty sure that you would have been capable of finding the information sooner or later. At that time, wouldn't you just come over and try to kill him? All that I did was to just speed up the process, and since you are here, we can just continue with how it was. It is just that we have to change the plans a little bit, Sebastian stated as the smile on his face finally disappeared. The two of you can continue bickering outside of this place. Right now, I'm busy with something else. So, you can FCK off. Jack stated. He had finally managed to begin the production of the cell invigorant syrup. Who do you think you are to talk to me like that? Do you think that I am your mate? Gideon, who was completely displeased at this moment, could not help but shout at Jack after hearing what he had said. Definitely not. First of all, I'm straight, and second, I'm not a wolf, but a human. So with those reasons, I'm definitely not your mate. Jack shook his head as he responded. Not being capable of holding back anymore, Gideon leapt forward and charged towards Jack. He could not continue holding it back anymore. Initially, he himself was a person with a short temper. So, he had been holding back all this while, and right now, he could not hold it in anymore. Sebastian had not expected that Gideon was going to attack at this point. At the end of the day, he himself was here, and he had just made himself clear that he wanted to recruit Jack. That implied that no matter what, he was not going to allow Gideon to take Jack away from this place. But now, he was a step too late to react. Nevertheless, he still charged forward, trying to prevent Gideon from reaching Jack. But due to the fact that the two of them were at the same level, he could not actually catch up to Gideon, and the gap between the two of them was maintained. As he watched as the two people approached him, Jack silently clenched his fist before he punched forward. Gideon had not expected that Jack was actually capable of reacting in a situation like that. According to the information that he possessed, Jack was actually capable of dealing with a superhuman, implying that he was also a superhuman. Due to the fact that he had actually managed to kill a stage 3 superhuman, that implied that he had to be at least at the 4th stage of the superhuman level. That in itself, looking at Jack's age, it looked like an overestimation, but nevertheless, Gideon thought that at most, Jack would be at the 5th stage of the superhuman level. For that reason, due to the gap that existed between the 5th stage and the 7th stage, He believed that it was going to be easy for him to be able to take care of Jack. The reason why he attacked so abruptly was not only due to the fact that he had already been angered by Jack, but it was also due to the fact that he was trying to make sure that he was not stopped by Sebastian. At the end of the day, the two of them were at the same level. So, if he made it even a single mistake, Sebastian would be able to stop him. Of course, Sebastian had already made his stance clear, implying that he was going to protect Jack from him, although he was actually the one that had provided the information. Looking at the fist that was approaching him, Gideon did not know how to react. This was completely unexpected. Just looking at the punch that was heading towards him, it was actually moving at a speed that he was not capable of reacting to. First of all, he had been moving at a great speed, making it almost impossible for him to be able to change the trajectory at which he was moving in a short moment. At the same time, the speed at which the punch was approaching him together with the speed at which he was approaching the punch with, it was definitely impossible for him to able to dodge. As for Sebastian, this guy was not even paying much attention to Jack. Instead, he had put all his focus on Gideon, trying to catch up to him to prevent him from killing Jack. To him, the mission that he had been given was to make sure that he recruited Jack into their organization. If he allowed Jack to be killed, then it was definitely going to be troublesome for him. Jack was going to be considered very important to the organization as long as he joined them. The potential that he possessed was definitely top-notch. In case Jack did not want to join the organization, then the organization could still go ahead and do research on him. At the end of the day, although it was true that currently, Jack was strong, he was not strong enough to be able to resist the Force organization. And, a dead person was definitely not the best one to research on. So, either for Jack to join the organization or for him to be researched on, Jack had to be alive. Thud. Bam. Sebastian was trying all that he could in order to be able to catch up to Gideon. But suddenly, he saw that Gideon had suddenly stopped. And in the next moment, he flew backwards. And just as Gideon was flying back, Sebastian was finally able to hear the sound of something colliding with flesh. And before he could even get out of the way, Gideon knocked into him, making the two of them collapse onto the ground heavily. The speed and strength at which the two of them collided was not to be underestimated. Sebastian was moving forward just like Gideon, using his full speed. As for Gideon, he had been launched backwards after receiving a punch on his chest. He had not expected that Jack was this strong, so, although he tried to avoid the attack after feeling the danger that was heading towards him, he did not have the chance. Sebastian rolled on the ground, feeling the pain that came from his hands. Just as Gideon was about to collide with him, he had managed to raise his hands to block his body. Nevertheless, he had underestimated the force at which Video was moving backwards with. So, the moment that he collided with him, the two hands were actually fractured, and even one of them was dislocated. And other than that, since he had hit the ground heavily, he could feel that his back was aching as well. Shaking his head intensely to dispel the dizziness that he was feeling, Sebastian looked up. He looked at Jack, who was still standing at the same position, completely unharmed. Then, he went ahead and looked at Gideon, who was lying on the ground limply. He was not making any movements, and since the two of them were quite close to each other, he could not even hear his breathing. Sebastian gulped. At this point, his heartbeat suddenly increased. He looked at Jack, then back at Gideon again. He repeated this almost 3 times, before finally understanding that it seemed that things had gone out of control. Of course, Sebastian never thought that Jack was the one who had actually hit Gideon, but instead, in his mind, he believed that it was definitely the person that was protecting Jack. "I'm sorry about this. I never expected that the background that you came from was this big. Can you please let me go?" Sebastian stated with a trembling voice as he looked at Jack. Jack was a little bit confused after hearing what Sebastian had said. Could it be that this guy had lost his mind after falling onto the ground like that? But after a moment, Jack finally understood what it was that Sebastian was trying to imply. It seemed that this guy did not believe that he was the one that had actually taken care of Gideon, and he believed that there existed a protector in the dark. In any case, that was none of his concern. Jack simply took a step forward, approaching Sebastian. Of course, it was true that Sebastian had not attacked him directly, and neither had he targeted any of those that were close to him directly, but nevertheless, he had done something indirectly. Right now, he had used the information that he possessed about him killing Derek, in order to bring this guy called Gideon over, to target him, Jack. But who could guarantee that Sebastian was not going to use a move like this one, to target another person next? Currently, he himself was capable of taking care of the problem, But what of Celine and the rest of the group? They on the other hand did not actually possess the strength that he possessed. That implied that if they were targeted, they would actually be easily taken care of. And that was a risk that Jack was not willing to take. So, since this guy had already done it, Jack was definitely not going to spare him. Additionally, it was of course not going to start speaking a lot of nonsense with Sebastian. In any case, no matter how many words were spoken, Sebastian was going to end up dead anyway. Sebastian looked up towards Jack. He was wondering what Jack wanted. In any case, he could tell that Jack was completely pissed off at him. But still, he hoped that Jack was going to consider the fact that he himself was from the Force organization. Of course he could tell that Jack was definitely not afraid of the other organizations, considering that currently, although he was not sure, he could tell that Gideon was dead. But Jack had already made an enemy out of the Johnson family. Could he still go ahead and make another enemy out of the Force organization? It might be true that the Force organization was not the biggest one present within the entire Stronghold domain, but nevertheless, they were also a force to be reckoned with. Currently, Sebastian was still on the ground. He was sitting in a kneeling position, where his B*TT was seated close to his heel. He was looking at Jack with hope in his eyes. And to say the truth, at this moment, as long as he was allowed to get out of here, he would definitely go straight back to the headquarters of the Force organization. Had it not been for the fact that he was afraid that he was going to be killed if he tried to get out of here right now, he would have definitely run out of this place by now. Just as he was expecting Jack to say something, he saw Jack doing something that made his eyes widen in disbelief. Jack's leg approached his head at an incredible speed, and since he himself was not expecting something like this to happen, he did not know how to react. Additionally, he had not expected that Jack was strong. So, the moment that Jack's foot approached him at such an incredible speed, he was not able to react on time due to the shock that he had received in his mind. Bang! Jack's foot connected with Sebastian's head. Due to the force that was contained in that foot, Sebastian was forced to hit onto the ground, headfirst. The floor cracked. At the same time, blood suddenly began coming out of Sebastian's head. As for Sebastian, his body twitched for a few seconds before it finally stopped. At this point, Sebastian had already died. Not understanding the reason why Jack was actually willing to kill him, going ahead to create enemies out of the Force organization. After killing the two people, Jack did not change his strategy at all, but instead, he went ahead and began increasing his strength. Not only his, but even Celine's and the rest of the groups. By the time that 1 week went by, leaving Jack with only 23 days for him to be able to conquer the named Stronghold, Devon's Stronghold, Jack had finally completed his time to stay inside this small stronghold. At this point, although the organization that he had created was not even named, or maybe it was not even created, but he was the well-known superpower within the entire stronghold. All the big businesses within this small stronghold were owned by him, and for that reason, he received a lot of respect. At the end of the day, although it seemed that everything had passed peacefully, in reality, there were several people with several plans of getting the methods that were used for crafting the communication device and the formula for creating the cell invigorant syrup. But all of them disappeared without a trace. Due to that, all the others learned a lesson. Other than the fact that this person was able to take the resources from the Panthers organization together with the Force organization, the strength that he possessed was not to be underestimated. Currently, Jack himself had already reached the 9th stage of the superhuman level. He was not the only one, considering that Celine, Denali, and Samantha had also reached the same level. This was due to the fact that during the past few days, he had made several sales, going to the extent of reducing the price that others had to pay. But of course, there was nobody that paid with star coins. Currently, it could be said that the star coins were completely worthless for Jack. Although they might be important, but when they went to the big strongholds, they would definitely not have much value. For that reason, Jack did not even start trying to accumulate them. Instead, he exchanged whatever product with another of the same value. This was the same concept that he was using during the time that he was operating the stores, though indirectly, according to the policy of all the stores that he had taken over from the two organizations. It was stated clearly that all the high-value products that were capable of affecting 7-star ordinary humans and above had to be exchanged with something of the same value. Immediately after that, whatever it was that Jack received, he of course increased them in terms of quality. Due to that reason, Jack had gone ahead and accumulated a few good things. But just to make sure that nothing suspicious happened, he went ahead and made sure that there were times that he increased the income in terms of quality and quantity. But of course, quality dominated. Of course he was not the only one who had improved his strength, but instead, he had gone ahead and increased the strength of the puppet as well. But there was no way that he was going to be capable of improving the strength of all of them. So, he decided to upgrade the strength of only a few of them, creating an elite force out of them. So, he went ahead and selected 5 of them, whose current strength had already been improved to stage 6 of the superhuman level. Had it not been for the fact that the resources that he could receive inside a small stronghold like this one was kind of limited, he would have definitely been capable of improving the strength of the 5 puppets to stage 9 of the superhuman level. But during this time, there was something else that Jack had realized. After reaching stage 9 of the superhuman level, he realized that there was definitely another power level beyond the superhuman level. It was just that no matter how many resources he took, he was not capable of improving his strength at all. It might be true that currently, his strength was above any stage 9 superhuman, but nevertheless, he was not capable of matching those that had already gone beyond the superhuman level. As for the fact that there actually existed a level that was beyond the superhuman level, that was the information that he had received from the system. As for those that had reached beyond the superhuman level, Jack did not doubt that they existed within this stronghold domain. With only 23 days left to go, Jack decided that he had to make sure that he went to the big stronghold, the Devon stronghold. It did not matter if Sylvia had completed what she wanted to do or not, but nevertheless, they had to go there. At the end of the day, there was no way that he was going to allow himself to be punished by the system, when he could just carry Sylvia and take her along to the Devon stronghold. Previously, it was true that he did not know where the Devon stronghold was located. But right now, it was completely different considering that he had received information from the system, not only about the resources present within the stronghold domain, but the location of the several big well-known strongholds. For that reason, although he did not possess deep information about the strongholds, but at least the location was something that he was in the know of. Jack was actually in a hurry simply because he had been given 2 tasks at the same time, and each and every one of them actually had a time limit of 30 days. During the time that he had taken the mission, the second task, only 2 days had passed. For that reason, currently, there were actually 25 days that were remaining till the time limit that he was given by the system to find the whereabouts of his mother ended. At this point, Jack felt that he was definitely going to fail at least one of the tasks that he had been given by the system. Had it been that he could see the information about the task that he was going to be given before he agreed, he would have definitely not agreed to the task right now. Nevertheless, there was nothing that he could regret about. In any case, he believed that as long as he managed to conquer the Devon stronghold in time, he would be able to find information about his mother using the influence that the Devon stronghold possessed. It was just that conquering an entire stronghold was definitely not something simple, and other than that, conquering the stronghold did not just imply overpowering them, but instead, it implied taking over everything that they possessed. Still, Jack believed that as long as he was serious about it, he would definitely be capable of doing that within 1 week. As for the following week, he could use it to stabilize his power. And after that, he could use the remaining week in order to try and prevent himself from failing the mission. At this point, Jack was about to go out of the building where they were staying in order to look for Sylvia. Of course he could have just contacted her considering that they had already exchanged the user numbers, but he did not do that. Instead, he decided that he was going to just pick her up. In case she was not willing to go, he was going to carry her by force. He had just left the building when he suddenly realized that Sylvia's car was approaching. Such a good coincidence. At least it saved him the time of going around to look for Sylvia. He just waited in front of the building. And after Sylvia had parked the car, she got out and looked at Jack, who was waiting for her with a little surprise in her eyes. Then, she went ahead and said, "According to the information that I have received from my aunt, the person that my brother sent is going to arrive here tomorrow. So, you have to be ready. And other than that, the Force organization has also sent someone to come over." The person that the Force organization has sent over is at the very peak of the superhuman level. As for the Johnson family, they are silent, not making any move. It is kind of strange, but I do believe that this is just the calm before the storm. Jack was not surprised by the information about the fact that the Force organization had sent someone after him again. But what surprised him a little bit was the fact that the person that was supposed to be coming for Sylvia was actually going to be here the following day. Nevertheless, he did not care. It was today that he had decided that he was going to get out of this place. So, he was definitely not going to wait until the following day until that person came over. "Okay. I do believe that you are ready to go, right?" Jack nodded his head as he asked. Go. Where? Sylvia asked confusedly. We are leaving this stronghold right now. I have already given you enough time. But for me, I don't have that much time. So, whatever goal you have, you will have to complete it later on after I complete what I have to do, Jack stated seriously. Are you kidding me? Do you even know the goal that I am having? Additionally, where is this place that you want to go to? Sylvia asked with a frown on her face. We are going to the Devon stronghold. Jack replied without hiding anything. At the end of the day, Sylvia was definitely going to know about where they were going to. And right now, even if she decided not to go along, there was no way that Jack was going to allow her to refuse. That was definitely unless she decided to cancel the contract that the two of them had signed. At that point, he would not be having any responsibility towards her, and he would not have to force her to be together with him so that he could protect her from whoever it was that was being sent by her brother to pick her up. As for the support from Sylvia's family, that was not something that he cared about. In any case, it was not as if he needed their support. And if they were located within the Devon stronghold, no matter what, he had to take care of them. Seriously, that is the place that you have decided to go? Not only is my family located in that place, but even if you go there, let me tell you in advance, you will definitely not be able to gain any advantage. According to the information that I have received from my aunt, currently, several organizations and families within the stronghold have begun competing for power. And the appearance of a person like you will definitely attract much attention towards yourself. At that time, as long as they get information that you are actually a superhuman at the age that you are in, they would definitely target you. And it will not be difficult for information about you to spread to the other strongholds. At that time, it will be like you have a big target on your back. The number of enemies that you will be having will definitely be innumerable. And other than that, the number of people that will want to recruit you using all methods possible will definitely be high as well. Are you sure that you can handle that? Sylvia asked as she looked at Jack with a serious expression on her face. To say the truth, she found herself caring about Jack and his group. At the end of the day, they had interacted several times during the time that Jack and this group had been inside this stronghold. And although they had started off badly, but that was completely forgotten. At the end of the day, it was just a small matter. What do you think? It is not as if I don't have the information about the Devon stronghold. Of course I know that it is a big stronghold, and there is a reason for me to go there, Jack responded. As for the matter of him being targeted, he didn't really care much about it. At the end of the day, he was supposed to establish an organization that was well known within the entire stronghold domain. So he might as well take this chance to start the establishment of the organization. As long as he himself possessed a lot of strength, something that he was definitely going to possess with the resources that could be found within the Devon stronghold, he was going to definitely complete that part of the requirement for the system authority upgrade. Sylvia looked at Jack, who was looking at her with a serious expression on his face, and she could not help but hesitate. Could it be true that Jack actually possessed the confidence of going in a place like that? But at the same time, she could not help but wonder what was Jack's current power level. The thing that she found strange about Jack and his group was the fact that they always possessed resources that were way more advanced, at a level that was way above the stronghold that they were currently in. So, she believed that perhaps there was someone that was always supplying Jack with the resources. But who could it be? Could it be that this person who was supplying Jack with the resources was the reason why Jack had actually managed to advance to the level that he was currently in? Of course, the thing that got her attention most was the fact that even Samantha, someone who was just a small guardian within the Butterfly organization, had actually managed to reach the superhuman level. Although she was not sure about the power level that Samantha currently possessed, but nevertheless, for some reason, she could tell that Samantha was stronger than she was. And that was something that surprised her. Had it not been for the fact that she did not want to owe Jack any other favor, she would have definitely asked Jack to help her in making sure that she was stronger as well. If that is the case, then let's go. But let me tell you in advance, don't expect that my family is going to support you. My family is only going to support the organization that you are going to create, but not you yourself. Although my family is a giant within the Devon stronghold, we are not the most powerful one. For that reason, if you are actually targeted by someone that is stronger than my family, don't expect that my family is going to fight to the death for you, Sylvia stated. Jack looked at her with a hint of surprise in his eyes. He did not expect that Sylvia was going to agree to go to the Devon stronghold. He had expected that she was going to resist. Could it be that she had already completed the goal that she was having? That was kind of new. At the same time, He could not help but wonder just what kind of goal she was having. Looking at Jack's curious expression, Sylvia immediately knew what Jack was thinking about. She simply snorted and said, "Of course I have completed the goal that I was having. I had promised my brother that I would be able to gain something without depending on my family. And of course, if I say something, it implies that it has to be something that is of a high value even to a family of my own. With the level of resources and strength that my family possesses, they would not definitely value just anything. And right now, I do possess a mind ability. With this, it is definitely something important, and my value in the family is going to be raised. So, it can be said that I have already completed my goal. As for what I was doing for the past few days, I was simply getting familiar with the ability. I had to gain good control of it, before finally going back home." Jack nodded his head in response. So that was how it was. In any case, just like what Sylvia had said, it was true that special abilities were actually quite rare within the Stronghold domain. Of course, the number of people that possessed special abilities was quite high if they decided to count them one by one. But those that possessed special abilities that related to the mind, they were quite few. "Okay. We are leaving in 3 hours," Jack stated. Immediately after that, he turned around and went back into the building. As for Sylvia, she did not follow him inside. Instead, she decided to go back to the mansion that she owned, to prepare herself for the departure. And to say the truth, she had not been expecting that they were going to leave today, although she was expecting that they were going to leave sometime soon. So, she had already began making preparations, but she needed to finalize the preparations. Ivy and Daniel looked at the man in front of them with furious expressions on their faces. At this point, they did not know what to do in the situation that they were currently in. Currently, all of them were injured, and other than that, they had both of their limbs tied, restricting their movements. Currently, Ivy was the strongest amongst them. But even so, she was not that much strong considering that she was only a 4-star ordinary human. As for the ropes that were used to bind the two of them, they were kind of special, capable of restricting even a 7-star ordinary human. So, she was not capable of doing anything at this moment. Currently, they were inside a room. The room itself was not that big, and from looking at it, one could see that there was a door that led towards the front of the building, where it could be seen clearly that there was a store. That's right. Right now, they were tied up inside a store, and other than the man that was standing in front of them, there was an old man and a young man behind him. Although the two of them had expressions that were filled with hatred, they did not do anything as they looked at the man in front of them from behind. Just from the eyes of the two, it was clear that if they really possessed an ability of taking care of this person, they would have definitely not hesitated to kill him. "I'm going to ask you the final time. Can you tell me how much you know about Jack and his group?" "I have been informed that you have interacted with him," the man stated. Of course, this man was none other than Antonio. During the past 3 days, he had managed to heal up. Of course, he had not yet recovered to his full strength, but nevertheless, it was not difficult for him to be able to take care of a 6-star ordinary human right now. Having already realized that Jack had dominated the entire stronghold, Antonio realized that it was going to be difficult for him to be able to take his revenge. But still, he was not willing to give up. For that reason, he was trying to look for a way that he was going to get something from Jack, something that was going to enable him to recover from the injuries that he had suffered before. "Let me tell you something. I'm pretty sure that if you encounter Jack, you will definitely not know how you died." Ivy looked at the man in front of her as she said boldly. She was not afraid of this person in front of her, although she knew that he was definitely capable of killing her. Antonio looked at the young lady in front of him with a frown on his face. He could say that whatever this lady was saying was actually true. He was sure that since Jack was able to subdue the entire Panthers organization, that implied that he had the strength to do so. Amongst all the people, he himself understood Sylvia quite well. She was not just a person who would hand over the power that she was holding to just anybody. The person who had the ability of receiving something from Sylvia, something as big as the entire Panthers organization, was definitely not just anybody. Of course, there was no way that he was going to give up on this revenge of his. It really did not matter if the other party had a strong background or not, but nevertheless, Antonio had decided that he had to get compensation. But of course, what he was looking for was not the life of Jack or anyone close to him, but instead, he was going to ask for compensation, something that was going to enable him to reach a higher level, enabling him to reach the superhuman level. After reaching the superhuman level, he would definitely be able to deal with Sylvia. At the end of the day, the biggest grudge that he was holding was for Sylvia. She was the one who had imprisoned him after breaking his legs, and until now, although he had healed up a little bit, he could still feel pain from his limbs. And it was definitely going to cost him a lot to be able to recover to his previous condition. Do you think that I need information like that from you? You better tell me where Jack is. In fact, any information that you possess about him, you better give it to me. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to do that. If you don't, then don't blame me for being rough on you. Antonio stated as he looked at Ivy with an icy gaze. Ivy felt her body trembling when she faced Antonio's gaze. But nevertheless, she did not look away, but directly stared into his eyes. She was not willing to look away, as she believed that this was a sign of weakness. As a person who had always been looking forward to being able to get stronger, she was definitely not going to show any kind of weakness, even in front of a person that was stronger than her. Daniel on the other hand felt helpless. At this moment, he was the elder brother, and he was supposed to protect his younger sister. But right now, he didn't have the capability of doing so. Of course, if he was not tied, he would have definitely gone ahead and stood in front of his sister. At the end of the day, even if he was going to die, he was going to die first before his sister. That was something that he had sworn to himself ever since they were young. But right now, not only was he bound, but he was not as strong as his sister was. That was something that made him feel helpless. So, during the past few days, he had been trying to see if there was anything that he could get that could boost his strength. As for Ivy, she had been training after the assistance from Celine. They had already booked a place for her to train, where several equipment could be found. That was the reason why she had consumed the medicine that was in her system, enabling her to reach the 4th star of the ordinary human level. As for today, they had just come over to this store, trying to see if there was anything cheap that they could purchase. Of course, during the time that they were inside this place, they had been working, and the combination of the entire team had earned them a few star coins. But they had not expected that just after they had gotten here, Antonio would come over and grab them. They had tried resisting, but they were not capable of doing so in front of a strong person like Antonio. Quite fierce, I see. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter how fierce you are. But as long as you don't give me the information that I want, I will definitely make sure that you suffer. Antonio threatened as he began approaching Ivy. Ivy was just about to say something when suddenly, Antonio looked towards the entrance of the room that they were currently in with a frown on his face. Go ahead and look who it is that has come over. Tell them to go away and come back later on. Antonio stated as he looked at the old man. Although the old man was completely unwilling, he did not have any other choice. He left the room and headed towards the entrance. Antonio on the other hand focused on Ivy and Daniel. So, what is it going to be? You are going to give me information, or I'm going to torture this brother of yours until you give me the information. From his observation, he had already realized that the one that seemed to be in much know about Jack and his group was Ivy. For that reason, he focused much of his attention on her. Ivy did not respond, but she wavered for a moment. At the end of the day, the only person that she had in this world was definitely her brother. So, she was not willing to see her brother suffer. It might be true that Jack had also assisted her, but she believed that Jack was definitely capable of handling a problem like this. It was just that she was not willing to cause him any unnecessary trouble. At the end of the day, even people get tired when a fly comes to disturb them without any reason, so she was currently feeling torn apart. Antonio squinted his eyes as he looked at her. He was just about to say something when he heard the sound of footsteps coming over. Of course he would not have cared if it was just the footsteps of the old man, but instead, he felt that the footsteps that were approaching belonged to 2 people, instead of 1. This made him frown. Didn't he just tell that old man that he was supposed to send whoever it was that had come over away? Why was it that he was bringing someone over? Quite curious about who it was that was coming over, Antonio turned around and looked towards the entrance of the room, one that later to the front of the store. Then suddenly, his eyes widened in disbelief when he saw who it was that had come over. It was a young lady with blonde hair, with brown eyes which contained a tinge of red in them. Currently, she was not wearing anything special, other than just a casual outfit, which consisted of a t-shirt and a pair of jeans that hugged her figure tightly. Antonio was not surprised by the beauty that had appeared in front of him, but the identity of this person. This was not the first time that he had seen her. Although there were some changes that had occurred to her, something like her getting even more beautiful than the last time that he had seen her, but he could tell that right now, the situation was not good at all. When Ivy saw the lady, her eyes widened in surprise. Denali! Ivy exclaimed in surprise. She had not expected that Denali was going to come over. Although she had not interacted much with Denali, but she had also developed a good impression of her. She could feel that there was a heroic spirit around Denali, something that attracted her. "Why are you holding them hostage?" Denali asked as she looked at Antonio. Of course she knew who this person was, considering that she had already been informed about him, as he was the one who had been sending people to the normal world to cause trouble. She had simply come over because she was coming to look for Ivy and Daniel. They were about to leave this stronghold, and she had developed a good impression of Ivy. For that reason, she had decided that she was going to give Ivy something that was going to boost her strength before leaving. But she did not expect that Ivy had disappeared. But after asking around, she was informed that Ivy and Daniel had come over here in this store. And as she could remember, this was actually the same, so that they had come over with the intention of renting it, but the owner refused. According to the information that she had received, Ivy and Daniel had entered this place, but nobody had seen them getting out. So, she suspected that they might be inside here, either being held against their will, or there was something that they were doing here. And since they were about to leave this stronghold, Denali could not wait for them. So when the old man opened the door, she didn't talk much with him, but went straight to the point. As for the old man, he did not even try to stop her from entering. Instead, he just pointed towards the back room of the store, and Denali led the way as he followed behind her. "How does this concern you?" Antonio asked with a frown on his face as he looked at Denali. Although he was displeased, there was nothing that he could do. He was sure that with his current condition, he was definitely not capable of matching this lady. Instead of replying to him, Denali took a step forward and began cutting the ropes that were used to tie both Ivy and Daniel. She was doing that with her bare hands, something that surprised even Antonio.